right. Do you think number 1 is a parallelogram? Well, what shape is number 1 up there? A rectangle. What do we know about rectangles? Their corners are what? 90-degree angles. If we have 4 90-degree angles, what do we know about opposite angles? They're congruent. Does that make a parallelogram? Yes, it is a parallelogram. What's the next one look like? Square. What do we know about opposite sides of a square? They're congruent, so is it a parallelogram? Sure is. What's that next figure of? A rhombus. What do we know about a rhombus? Opposite sides are congruent again, right? So is that a parallelogram? So these are the 3 shapes we're worrying about today. We're going to worry about a rectangle, a square, and a rhombus. And we're going to look at properties of each of them. And they all are parallelograms. So these are all just special types of parallelograms we're working on today. Now in a rhombus, what you have to know is the diagonals bisect each other and they are perpendicular. The diagonals are perpendicular. They form a right angle. What does that do? Well, that makes a right triangle here, and you'll have to do the Pythagorean theorem today. Just telling you. You're going to have to do the Pythagorean theorem. C squared equals A squared plus B squared. Okay? Other thing about a rhombus is notice how these are the same. Okay? The diagonals bisect opposite angles. What that means is it splits this in half. So this angle is 126, but it's split perfectly in half in a rhombus. And this angle is 54 and split perfectly in half because it's a rhombus. So when we have a rhombus, once I know one angle, I know every other angle. Okay? If this is 53, this is 53. This is 90, this is 90, this is 90, this is 90. This is 53, and this is 53. Because it's a parallelogram, because opposite angles are congruent. Now, if this is 53, what's this angle down here? 37, because they have to add up to 180 in that triangle, right? So if that's 37, what's this? 37 and this, 37 and this, 37. Like I said, once you know one angle of a rhombus, you know every other angle. Okay? Okay. If QPT is 23, well, first you got to know what QPT is. What's the middle letter? P. So that's right down here. QPT is this little one right here. If that's 23, then this is 23. What's PST? What's this one right here? Well, we know this is 90, so what's left for PST? 67. Okay, 67 is what's left. Okay, rectangles. Notice, is this angle the same size as this angle? This little one and this one? No. Diagonals do not bisect opposite angles in a rectangle. Okay? But the diagonals are congruent. These two diagonals are the same length. Okay? So that's the one thing we know about rectangles. Diagonals are congruent. We also know all the angles are right angles and opposite sides are congruent and all that. But the special thing about rectangles are the diagonals are congruent. So if this is 192 and this is 80, how far is it from D to B? Okay? So, maybe that's not even what it's asking, but that's something I kind of want to know. Paul is training a horse to run a course at a pace of 4 meters per second or faster. Paul rides from D to C and from C to E and E to B. So from D to C, C to E, and E to B. Okay? We got to figure out the distance. Well, I know it's 192 meters here. but we got to figure out these two distances. To do that, we have to use the Pythagorean theorem. This is a right triangle. This is 192, this is 80. How do I figure out dB? Well, c squared equals a squared plus b squared. C squared, which is dB, equals 80 squared plus 192 squared. What's 80 squared? 6,400. What's 192 squared? 36,864. Add them together. 43,264. And then take the square root. Is it a nice number? What? 208. So if this is 208, how long is CE if it's a rectangle? 104. And how about EB? 104. So take 192 plus 104 plus 104 on your calculator. Add them up. What do we get? 400. He went 400 meters in how many seconds? 1 minute and 30 seconds is how many seconds? 90 seconds. Take 400 divided by 90. You get 4 point what? 4 meters per second. He wanted to ride 4 meters per second or faster. 4.44 is faster than 4. So that works. A volunteer group is planning a butterfly garden in a portion of a rectangular park. What's the perimeter of the butterfly garden? Okay, again, Pythagorean theorem, right? C squared equals a squared plus b squared. C squared equals 100 squared plus 160 squared, or 10,000 plus 256,000? I don't know. Oh, ooh, good. So c squared equals 356,000. Take the square root. What's the square root of 356,000? So this should be 25,600. And so this should be 35,600. And take the square root of 35,600. And we get 188.6. You guys agree? Okay. So this is 94.3. And this is 94.3. And this is 160. Okay. And you just add them up. So we're good with that. Now we get to a square. A square is both a rectangle and a rhombus. So the diagonals are congruent and they're perpendicular and they bisect opposite angles. They do all three of them. So if this is a 90-degree angle and it bisects it, each of these are 45, right? Okay. Diagonals are going to be the same length and diagonals are going to be perpendicular to each other. All right. This is a square. WY plus XC is 92. Well, they're equal length, right? So what's half of 92? So they're each 46 long, right? What's half of that? So WP is 23 and PZ is 23. Okay? This is a right triangle, right? What's the area of a triangle? Area of a triangle is base times height divided by 2, or 1/2 the base times the height. So the base is 23, the height is 23 because it's a right angle. So take 23 times 23 and divide it by 2, and you get the area of that triangle. What do we get? 264.5. Okay? Find the area of a triangle. So a rectangle has its diagonals are congruent. A rhombus, the diagonals bisect opposite angles, and the diagonals are perpendicular. And a square, both of those. Okay? Diagonals are perpendicular, diagonals bisect opposite angles, and the diagonals are congruent to each other. Okay? So I'll put out this assignment. Friday we'll take 2 quizzes, or Wednesday we'll take 2 quizzes, and then have a lesson, last lesson of the semester. Friday we'll review for the test. Next Monday we'll take the test. Wednesday we'll review for the semester test. Friday we'll all go to the gym and set up for the wrestling tournament. Lucky to be Mr. Bierschbach's kids' 4th period. Well, yeah, we just get an earlier start on it. And then after that, we'll review some more for the semester test and take the semester test. So that's what the rest of the years look like. So 2 quizzes and the last section next time. So that's good.